a partner in the employment benefits and employment law practice group. I'm also part of the mining sector group within Wentzel. We specialize, in mining law in all its aspects. I particularly look at employment law as well as health and safety law. Obviously, the Minister had a lot to say about the regulatory background. I particularly focused on what he said relating to industrial relations, and he focused on the fact that we need stability within the industrial relations climate. As you know, we had a 5-month strike in 2014 in the platinum industry. That strike had an enormous effect on the industry. We now still see the aftermath of that with retrenchments, with a number of the mining companies who are in fact in trouble, distressed, shafts that in fact do not in fact make the grade. And we have a new trade union who has become the majority in the platinum industry, and that's AMCU. They have displaced the National Union of Mine Workers as the majority union. They have entered into a number of agreements to recognize them. Impala Platinum, Anglo-American Platinum, as well as London have all recognized AMCU, and they're negotiating collective agreements now with AMCU as the majority trade union. We've also seen major changes in the gold industry, where we have seen AMCU also gaining traction at a number of mines, particularly in the Carlton Gold area with Sibanye, with Anglo-American, Anglo Gold Ashanti's mines, and then also with Harmony in the Free State goldfields. The National Union of Mine Workers is still the majority union, but there also AMCU has made inroads at a number of the mines and the particular shafts of these 3 major mining companies. So we've seen a total change in the landscape as far as industrial relations is concerned. It is not a stable environment because there's a lot of rivalry between the National Union of Mine Workers and AMCU, and they are jockeying for position, and that causes the industrial relations climate not to be an easy one. We've also seen, as the Minister has said, a number of retrenchments announced by major mining companies. London have in fact announced large retrenchment exercises and consultation processes. The same happened with a number of the other companies. In the gold industry as well, there is a constant process whereby there's restructuring to make the mines more profitable, and in the process, unfortunately, labour cost is a very large aspect of any mine's ongoing cost, and for that reason they also look to reduce numbers, and that is bad for the economy in terms of losing those people from permanent employment and then becoming part of the unemployed. And that obviously is a major aspect that the Minister addressed. So he addressed both the issue of the labour relations framework, and he also addressed the issues of job losses to try and stem those job losses. And in that regard, he referred to the presidential framework on stability within the mining industry. That was in fact a project launched last year by the President's office. And also there is the Mining Growth Development and Employment Task Team that also met last year. You'll recall Minister Robert Clawley started that process, and he met with a number of the captains of industry. He also met with a number of trade unions, and that task team tried to put together a 10-point plan to stem job losses. Where you have distressed mines, to maybe find other buyers for them, to create a fund to assist unemployed, retrenched workers, and generally to try and avoid retrenchments. A greater involvement with the Department of Mineral Resources to try and stem the number of retrenchments. Whether that will be successful or not is an open question, and I don't have the answers. The industry is in fact committed to try and minimize the number of retrenchments, but in a number of cases they just can't avoid going to an operational requirement dismissal because they have to reduce their cost. And with the threat of higher electricity costs and other costs within the industry, that pressure is going to be even higher now. We see that commodity prices are going down all the time. The only bit of good news is the gold price. That linked to the exchange rate makes it a bit more profitable for the gold mines to mine a kilogram of gold, but that pressure is going to remain. So one aspect that concerns me is the following. If it is the earnest task of the new Minister Zwane, also to try and on the same basis as his predecessor tried to bring back stability to the mining industry, to work towards sustainable growth, then you can't ignore AMCU in this whole process. And you have to make AMCU part of the framework agreement and also part of the task team agreements to in fact stem job losses. They need to ascribe to those principles that have already been agreed to by the other trade unions and by the major employers. If they don't do it, we're going to continue having this type of strife within the mining industry and instability in our industrial relations. There needs to be a more concerted effort from the government to also reach out to AMCU. We know AMCU is not part of COSATU or any of the federations or trade unions that's close to government, and it's part of the alliance with the ANC, but the point is they're a major role player. They have a substantial number of members, and we need to involve them. I think employers know that. Employers where AMCU has reached a number of members that qualify for organizational rights or for recognition, it happens, and they negotiate with them. So you build up a relationship with government, trying to in fact instill trust in the industry and to get stability back to the industry. They cannot ignore AMCU, and I think the new minister will have to reach out to AMCU, get them involved in any of these task teams or in the presidential framework discussions so that we can get stability. And they need to convince AMCU to subscribe to those principles that have been agreed with the other trade unions and the industry as a whole. What is important, I heard Graham Briggs, who is now stepped down as the managing director of Harmony. He spoke the other day and saying he was quite positive about his meeting with and engagement with the new minister, Mr. Zwane. I think the approach that has been followed is now to meet with the captains of industry, meet with the different managing directors, start building trust with them towards achieving the goals that the minister wants to achieve. But you cannot do so if you only focus on the employers. You also now have to focus on the trade unions. We have a number of trade unions within the mining industry, National Union of Mine Workers, UHASA, Solidarity, and as I say, AMCU. So AMCU also has to be brought into the fold. The lines of communication have to open up with them. So the minister, I would suggest, would need to build a trust relationship with all those trade unions, involve them in discussions, try to get them to ascribe to the principles of what the government sees as important in achieving sustainability and growth, and then bring all the parties together. You mentioned Pakisa, the whole Pakisa effort that was started last year. That needs to be taken further, and it needs to involve AMCU as well. It's extremely important. I've mentioned the aspect of regulatory certainty. Claude started a process with certain amendments to the Mineral Petroleum Resource Development Act. Minister Zwane said they're going to take that further and accelerate that. So the captains of industry, so to speak, the major companies, need to have that understanding from government that what they are concerned about, and to have the government listen to them in what they say will be required to create stability and regulatory certainty. I think even if it's not what they want to hear, if the government is clear, this is what we want to achieve and the reasons why we achieve it, at least that could be the framework for further discussions and achieving, a unified goal. If I just come back to labour relations, obviously a more focused approach on, we're going to in fact take the Pakisa discussions further. We're going to in fact have a further meeting of everyone involved in the presidential framework and also the task team, and these are the dates that we're going to in fact try and set up meetings, and we have an open invitation to AMCU and all the relevant role players, that there's a clear agenda on what needs to be achieved. That's all that you would like to have, is a clear agenda. What are the issues that will be addressed to determine whether in fact those goals of achieving industrial relations peace can be achieved, because that's a very important factor. Well, as I say, there have been very important interactions at Indaba. The minister's speech was obviously a guideline to what he's going to focus on and look at, and he will be kept to the promises he made in that speech. He will also be, I think, tested on to what extent he's going to take certain of initiatives further that was taken by Minister Claude. There were a number of those initiatives which I think bode quite well for the industry last year, and it will now be up to the minister to in fact show that he can take that further. You can regard Mining Indaba as a success, the number of role players that are there, financiers, banks and other parties involved in industries that is involved surrounding each mine and providing services. Those role players were all there, and I think they're all focusing on the rest of Africa as well. So Africa presents an opportunity for further development. Hopefully South Africa will be the base for a number of those companies and service providers. And we are quite positive about what will flow from Indaba in respect of development in mining in the rest of Africa. And mainly as a South African, I trust that South Africa will also get its house in order, that we will in fact again have regulatory certainty, we'll deal with issues in industrial relations, we will again become a favorite destination for investment